Well, everybody, it's a bad week to be a Biden. Who is Devon Archer? Why hasn't Biden been impeached yet? And an interesting trend in high schoolers' political leanings. All of this and more today on Speechless, The Daily Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Speechless, The Daily Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Kev Phares. I am the 22-year-old conservative college radio host out of Central Illinois, and I'm so happy to be talking to you guys today, especially with the biggest news I've covered in quite a while. But first, I want to remind everybody, please, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. The subscribe button is all around right down there. There's one that's going to be popping up right here. You can like the video. It's a big thumbs up right down there somewhere too. You can like that and give it a share if you like what you see. Put it on Facebook. Let people know, because these are the things that, while the mainstream media might be covering it, are they asking the same questions? Are they really asking the same questions? Are they really exposing this line of corruption? We'll see. We'll see, but I don't think they are. So don't forget, you can share the video and leave me a comment. What do you think about everything I'm talking about here today? And big reminder, everybody, this show is brought to you by Paul Garcia Productions out of Central Illinois. Paul Garcia Productions does stunning work in helping local businesses create advertisements and video productions for their business. And if you want to help your business get more business, visit Paul Garcia Productions today. His info is in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel. Check out his website. If you think that you want your business to get more business, check out Paul Garcia Productions today. Everybody, this has been a bad week for the Bidens, period. Hunter's sweetheart deal imploded. Covered that already. Joe finally recognized his grandchild that Hunter had with the stripper. The seventh grandchild. He recognized that on Friday. It's not the biggest story in the world, because that's what I'm about to cover, but he did finally recognize that illegitimate grandchild. The biggest story, though, is one that some could claim could lead to Joe Biden's imminent impeachment. Devon Archer's testimony to the House Oversight Committee, which happened just this morning. So who is Devon Archer? You're going to hear this name a lot. I guarantee you, in the news, you're going to hear some people slamming this guy as a liar. He's not necessarily a good person. He's a criminal, but you're going to hear people saying that he's a liar, conspiracy theorist, or honestly, you might even hear the left come out and say that he's a right-wing extremist. You might. Because Devon Archer joined the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma Holdings LLC with Hunter Biden back in 2014. He also co-founded Rosemont Seneca Partners, a private equity firm, with Hunter Biden. One of Hunter Biden's best friends. That seems to not be panning out so well. Originally, there were texts that were leaked. I believe they were from Hunter Biden's laptop. I'm not 100% sure, but there were texts, and they have been verified. They're real. And so let's take a look at some of these. So here's one right here. These are from, I'm just finding them from Twitter, but I've seen multiple people post them. Here's one. These are texts that Devon Archer sent. They said, "Why did your dad's administration appointees arrest me and try to put me in jail? Just curious. Some of our partners asking out here, why would they try to ruin my family, destroy my kids, and no one from your family's side step in and at least try to help me? I don't get it. And I'm depressed. A bunch of these Asians getting in my head, asking me the same. So just curious what I should answer." And then Hunter responding, "Buddy, are you serious? Because there's no connection or control between the two. The Justice Department can investigate and prosecute this president and his family. It does for all of his administrations. It's democracy, 3 co-equal branches of government. You are always more vulnerable to the overreach of one of those co-equal branches when you are in power. Every president's family is held to a higher standard, is a target. It's the price of being the most powerful group of people in the world. It's why our democracy remains viable. It's unfair at times, but in the end, the system of justice usually works. And like you, we are redeemed and the truth prevails. The unfairness to us allows for the greater good." Well, I'm hoping that justice does prevail. It's quite interesting. Devon Archer has actually been in the court a lot recently for a main thing, defrauding Native Americans, I believe exactly was out of the New York Post. It was actually, so he gave this testimony this morning. Let's lay all this out. So he gave this testimony this morning. I'm going to go through some of the news with that. But before all this, he's obviously been involved with Ukraine, Burisma, those holdings that there's a lot of rumor and controversy around. Hunter Biden's now defunct Rosemont Seneca Partners and private equity firm. And so he's been in court for a while. The Justice Department actually sent a letter after an appeal did not go Devon's way recently, sent a letter to try to get him put in prison prior to this testimony this morning. The Justice Department out of the New York Post was pushing for Devon Archer to report to prison just days ahead of the former Hunter Biden business partner's hotly anticipated congressional testimony, according to new court documents. Manhattan federal prosecutors on Saturday filed a letter requesting a judge set a date for Archer, 58, to start his one-year sentence in a fraud case unrelated to the first son's various scandals. The request came after the Second Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed Archer's 2018 conviction last Tuesday on 2 felony charges for his role in a conspiracy to defraud a Native American tribe. The DOJ sent a letter to the judge that said they, quote, respectfully request that the defendant be ordered to surrender at a date and time determined by the court to a facility designated by the Bureau of Prisons to commence his term of imprisonment. Archer had been challenging in court, the conviction in court, causing him to not be in prison quite yet. However, lefties claim that saying that this is an intimidation tactic is simply a conspiracy theory, which is how I know it's probably an intimidation tactic. And that's really what it seems like, right? Devon Archer is supposed to testify what is considered to be the smoking gun testimony in the House Oversight Committee investigation into the Biden crime family. And all of a sudden, just really, really quickly before even like another appeal could be filed, anything like that, they request that he be sent to prison as soon as possible, basically. Very interesting. Seems like an intimidation tactic. But obviously, Devon was told, Devon still testified this morning, and there's been a lot that's coming out of it. Interestingly enough, Devon was going into the testimony with a smile on his face, pulling that clip up right here, right now. Check this out. Yes, with a smile on his face, Devon can be seen going into that courtroom. Let's take a look right here.
Today. Do you have anything to say? Did you have meetings with the Bidens, and can you elaborate on those things?
Did anyone tell you not to appear today, sir?
Answering no questions.
Today.
Let's watch one more time. Yes, so he's going in.
Did you have meetings with the Bidens, and can you elaborate on those things?
Did anyone tell you not to appear today, sir?
So yes, so he actually, so he's obviously being asked all those questions. Did anyone not tell you not to appear today, sir? All these kinds of questions being thrown his way. Does not answer a single one. Same can be said when he exited. He was asked a lot of questions that he did not respond to. But I was searching for a way to totally break down not only Devon Archer, again, former business associate and good friend, as we saw in those texts being called buddy. There's other texts that show Hunter Biden saying, one of the two, there an exchange in which Hunter Biden and Devon said, I love you. Obviously, probably more friendly, but a good friend of the Bidens. And so I was trying to find a way to fully expose and show every single little facet of this, because, you know, when we talk about the idea of a possible impeachment, 'cause that's what this is all going to boil down to. When we talk about that, it takes a lot to lay out this entire story. Even the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which now we look back on and can say it was simple that Bill Clinton had lied to Congress in his testimony and saying that he did not have sexual relations with that woman, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. And then obviously he did, and it was proven in court. Everybody saw that well in throughout the hearings, the impeachment hearings. But I was trying to find a simple way to lay out the Biden crime family corruption. And so I did find, actually, I could have just done it all for you here, but this does it incredibly simply. Fox News this morning had this, which really lays out every single little part of it. Let's take a look.
May be on deck. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer of Kentucky has said we are now entering the deposition phase of their look into Hunter and potentially Joe Biden's corrupt business dealings. So who could be deposed? Who are the players in this drama? We'll start with Devon Archer, who we expect to hear from today. Who is he? Devon Archer is Hunter's former best friend. We have text messages, which we talked about this morning and have been revealed, that show the extent of their relationship. I love you, man. I love you, man. Not so much love today as Devon Archer, it is expected, will reveal some of the dirty and corrupt business dealings. How does he know? Because he was a business partner in some of those deals in Romania, in Ukraine, and in China. Again, at 10 a.m. today, in a 4-hour hearing, you will hear from Devon Archer. Weirdly, over the weekend, the DOJ sent a letter to Archer saying, hey, time to report to prison. Why is that? because in 2018, he was convicted of defrauding a Native American tribe. It's on appeal, and he will have to report to the
all things I obviously already covered, but it's good. I mean, he does go into it a little bit more. So everything I already covered, but now look at some of the other players. That's the biggest thing is some of the, because we're going to cover Devon Archer. We're going to cover his testimony, but I want to make sure you have a holistic view because we cannot, one, Devon Archer is not a good guy. Devon Archer is not the end all be all. He's not a good guy. I mean, he is currently being convicted of 2 felonies for defrauding a Native American tribe. He's a criminal too. What's really being played right now is I believe it's Machiavellian theory, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. And so Devon Archer right now is becoming an enemy of the Bidens with the knowledge that he has and the testimony he is giving. I'm honestly willing to bet, again, no evidence for this, but that potentially his testimony could lead to either parole or complete expunging of his. I don't know any of that, but it could be. I mean, especially if this is a smoking gun, as we're led to believe. So let's keep going, though. Let's understand the other players in this game. And I know some people don't love Fox News, and I know that there's controversy. I'm letting them give the facts because in this instance, they are giving the facts. We can talk about who they're owned by and all those other kinds of things that we can have that conversation. But this is a short clip, again, just giving the facts of who the players are in the whole Biden crime family and crime associates. So let's keep taking a look at this.
The Bureau of Prisons. It's just odd that the DOJ was working on a Saturday and said, why don't you go ahead and get to prison?
Exactly.
On Sunday, they said, we don't mean before you're supposed to testify. All very odd. That's Devon Archer, but that's just the start of this drama. Tony Bobulinski is another character you've probably become familiar with. He created Sinohawk Holdings with Hunter Biden to work with the Chinese energy company. He alleges that Joe Biden is the big guy. He saw the business dealings. He was there when they were talking about where the payments were going, and that 10% would go to the big guy. Bobulinski says he met with Biden in 2017. But that gets the ball rolling. We should hear from, as well, Eric Schwerin. Schwerin is described as a close confidant and counsel to Joe Biden. He had access to accounts related to Hunter's firm. Now, Schwerin has had a falling out with Hunter Biden. And as such, he is well positioned to share some of the dirty details inside of those business dealings with the House GOP probe. And then there is somewhat of a placeholder. We know the names in some cases of individuals related to Hunter and potentially Joe Biden. For example, in China. How about with the CEFC, a Chinese energy company? We know we have the text messages of Hunter Biden threatening Raymond Zhao over the business dealings, saying things like, I expect the payment. If not, there will be a price to pay. I'm sitting here with my father tonight waiting for your call. But multi-million-dollar deals were done with Hunter since 2015, and that's all coming out because Hunter was high on crack and left a laptop in Delaware. And just like in China, a bit of a placeholder in Ukraine, where Burisma business partners have begun to reveal details in a 1023 form, an investigative form with the FBI. A confidential informant has revealed the communications about, if that CI, that confidential informant is to be believed, about $5 million, $10 million going to Hunter, to Joe, to the Biden family. Hunter, of course, sat on the Burisma board, where he was making something like $83,000 a month, despite not speaking Ukrainian or Russian or knowing anything about the oil and gas business. Right? But he has, as well, been connected to those dirty dealings in Ukraine. The question we begin to learn maybe today with Devon Archer is whether or not Joe Biden is as well connected to that influence peddling.
So we've met the players, and today we've heard from one of them, a big one, Devon Archer, who, like we said, former business partner, good friend, appearing to be at one point an ally of the Biden family. But now we are starting to get some of the information as to what was discussed in his testimony. Out of the New York Post today, a source familiar with Archer's nearly 4-hour closed-door interview said that Archer testified that Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings added Hunter to its board in early 2014 because of the Biden brand, as his dad led U.S. policy towards Ukraine when, obviously, 2014, Where was Joe Biden? Vice president. Archer testified that Burisma owner Mykola Zlochevsky, totally could have butchered that, and company executive Vadim Pozharsky in late 2015 also could have butchered that one. In late 2015, put intense pressure on Hunter to enlist the United States government to help out Ukrainian prosecutor general Viktor Shokin, who had investigated Burisma for corruption. The former Hunter Biden partner added that he witnessed the then second son, Zlochevsky and Pozharsky, step away as they, quote, called D.C. to discuss the issue. To discuss the issue. Remember that part. To discuss the issue. And I highlighted in my notes to make sure we remember that. Discuss the issue. Archer also testified that Hunter Biden put his father on speakerphone more than 20 times during business meetings to promote the brand, including at a dinner in Paris with a French energy company and in China with Jonathan Lee of BHR Partners, a state-backed investment fund co-founded by Hunter in 2013 after he introduced his father to Lee in person in China's capital during an official trip. This is insane. Archer also testified, again, let me repeat, Archer also testified that Hunter Biden put his father on speakerphone more than 20 times during business meetings to promote the brand. During business meetings, also, there was an in-person meeting, apparently, in China's capital during an official trip with a business partner and Hunter and Joe. Interesting, because I've heard Joe say very different things. Let's take a look.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. There is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No, I wasn't involved in Hunter's, but not even a little bit. There's no reason you should believe that. I was not involved. I was not involved, Joe says. Maybe it's the undeclared dementia that he might have. Maybe he just forgot, right? Maybe he just forgot. Because this guy is saying that there are multiple. It's not just like, oh, maybe it happened one time. No, over 20 phone calls where he was brought on. We also already have the evidence of the big guy being involved in some way. But you've never discussed it, Joe? Never? Democrat Rep. Dan Goldman was asked a little bit about this following the hearings. Let's see what he had to say and just how he looks. Take note of maybe his emotion. Maybe he's perspirating a little bit. Let's see exactly what he had to say.
Doesn't it contradict the president's statement saying that he never talked to any of Hunter Biden's business associates? Clearly, he talked, whether it's about the weather or whatever, but he said specifically that he's never talked to them. Doesn't this contradict him?
I don't know what his comment is, and if we're gonna, well, I don't think that's what he said. He never said that he has never spoken to anyone. He said that he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings. If he says hello to someone that he sees his son with, is he supposed to say, hi, son? Oh, no, I'm not going to say hello to the other people at the table or the other people on the phone. It's kind of a preposterous premise to think that a father should not say hello to people that the son is at dinner with, and that is literally all the evidence is.
Is this like a party trick that Hunter Biden used to impress the people he was with?
Is this just, then they start asking, is this just like a party trick that maybe he used? No, the allegations, Rep, are not that, Rep Goldman, are not that he just said hello on the phone or that, oh my God. Then he goes on to say things like, it's absurd to think he shouldn't just say hello. Nobody's alleging that. Nobody's alleging that. In fact, at least according to people that are close to the situation, there's a lot more than hellos. And obviously others, lefties, are trying to claim, well, they were just having conversations about the weather. Just the weather? Really? And once again, you guys want me to play that clip again? Let's play that clip again of everything. Every time Joe Biden was asked and talked about Hunter Biden's bill. Let's just play it one more time. Let's see exactly what did Joe Biden say. Now that we know, was he What exactly did Joe Biden say? Was he actually denying any involvement, or what? What level of involvement? Let's just see.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. There is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved? Were you involved?
I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
No involvement. That's what Joe says. No involvement. Well, at a minimum, let's even accept the absurd premise, the obvious lie that it could have been just talking about the weather. Let's accept that for a second and say, hey, is that no involvement? Is that no involvement? No, like zero. Taking the definitions of the word literally, as I often do because I take people for what they say. No involvement. Zero. None. Doesn't sound like no involvement to me. However, Joe Biden will still say this after all of this, right? After all of this, Hunter, the crack addict, prostitute enthusiast, guy who had an affair with a stripper and then now has an illegitimate daughter because of it, and an affair, I don't know if you guys knew this one, had an affair with his brother's widow. The man that left his laptop in a repair store that had all of this evidence on it, really? This is what you think of him, Joe?
My son Hunter is the smartest guy I know. He is the smartest man I know. I mean, in terms of pure intellectual capacity.
The smartest man I know in a pure intellectual capacity, according to Joe Biden. It's the smartest man I know. Well, he could be your downfall, Joe. And this whole testimony, everything that's coming out about it, again, Joe Biden on the phone calls. Joe Biden apparently possibly had a in-person meetup in China. Involved potentially in all of the using the Biden brand to negotiate these business dealings. Leaves a lot of questions. First off, why was this testimony closed door? The UFO ones last week were open. Why was this testimony closed door? It could be a simple answer. It could just be some bureaucratic crap that I don't know about. Could be. But why was this one closed door? Will we get the entire release? I hear that this was a transcribed 4-hour testimony. Will we get the entire transcription of the testimony? What else was said in this testimony? More might even come out by the time that this video is posted, that you guys are watching this. More could come out. This could be outdated in the few hours from the time I record this. Again, right now it is about 4:00 Central Standard Time when I'm recording this. More could come out by the time that this posts. Just saying. Why did Biden lie? Another question. Why did Biden lie? He said no involvement. Why did he lie? Why'd you lie, Joe? Why'd you lie? And finally, why hasn't Biden been impeached yet? Let's get this into another segment just because I want to compare this. Why hasn't Biden been impeached yet? During the Trump years, I'm old enough to remember, all it took was one anonymous whistleblower to spark the impeachment inquiry. I'm of course talking about the 2019 impeachment because there was 2 impeachments of Trump, one that related to, I believe, January 6th and one that was related to the phone call with recently elected Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. In 2018 was the phone call. 2019 was the impeachment, if I remember correctly. And again, what sparked that inquiry was a whistleblower, an anonymous whistleblower that hadn't even been present for the phone call, that came out and then forced the release of a transcript, right? That's all it took to begin the impeachment inquiry. It was an anonymous whistleblower. Still don't know who it was, as far as I know. It was an anonymous whistleblower. At least at the time, they had no idea who it was. Claimed to be within the intelligence community. And also self-admittedly was not present for the phone call. Interesting, right? That's all it took to spark an impeachment inquiry. And then obviously that forced the release of the transcript, which ultimately led to the impeachment inquiry. Then the Dems searched for everyone and everything they could to make Trump look bad, like an extortionist. They got Rudy Giuliani's documents. They got other people's documents, everyone associated to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, Bill Taylor. And then the smoking gun testimony, which was Gordon Sondland, who was the ambassador to the EU. But all of that sparked by a third-party whistleblower and a transcript. For Biden, Joe Biden, we have texts. We have Hunter's laptop from hell that not only reveals the extent of his addiction, but also his enthusiasm for ladies of the night. But also, and along with that, there's significant evidence within that from emails, texts, records regarding his foreign business dealings and Joe Biden's involvement. We have Tony Bobulinski, who confirms that Joe Biden is the big guy, referenced in emails, such as one that alleges the big guy would receive a 10% share in a deal with a Chinese energy firm. We have all of this evidence, and now we have Devon Archer. How much more do we need? The fact is nothing. Like, purely, I don't care if you're pro-Joe Biden, anti-Joe Biden, whatever. Constitutionally, we need nothing more for an impeachment inquiry. Look, here's the thing. Impeachment inquiries are relatively simple to set up. You could do it for almost anything. The criteria for an impeachment, as listed in Article 1 of the Constitution, is, and I quote, "The president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors." That's incredibly vague. High crimes and misdemeanors. And treason and bribery are pretty specific, but high crimes and misdemeanors, pretty vague. That's why the Democrats were able to set up 2 BS impeachments against Trump for relatively baseless claims of obstruction, abuse of power, other things, because a lot of things can fall under high crimes and misdemeanors. And this is what I complained about back then, because I had my radio show during or soon after some of those impeachment inquiries. I talked about this, or I had a podcast even back then with a buddy named Josh, who many of you guys know. But back then I even talked about, and I said, this is a bad precedent to set if we're just going to say anything can pretty much be a high crime or misdemeanor. And I'll still say that was a bad precedent to set. And if anything, we shouldn't just impeach somebody for anything. I know I'm not saying that Biden's are baseless or don't have anything behind them, but you could have set up an impeachment inquiry a lot sooner. And all these testimonies could be going into that impeachment inquiry, because the precedent has been set by the Democrats when they impeached Trump twice with relatively baseless claims, made very strong stretches to try to say what he could do. We have more evidence than the Dems ever did for their impeachments. The iron is hot, but it could cool. The iron is hot, but it could cool. It's time to strike. Impeach Biden. Look, it might not make it through the Senate. It might not, especially with the fact that the Dems basically have a majority in the Senate. They do. They have, I believe it's 51-49. They have a majority in the Senate. Even if you got one Dem to cross over, highly unlikely. Even if you did get one Dem to cross over, you'd still have Kamala Harris who'd be the deciding vote. And that leads me into my next kind of little tidbit is, if we impeached Biden, look what we would have. Kamala Harris. Look, I believe there should be an impeachment inquiry into Biden. I think some of this stuff is very concerning. I've recently come out and said that I firmly believe that the government lies to us more than it tells the truth. And this is just another example of that. Joe Biden is obviously has lied significantly. And I've exposed a lot of his other lies, but these seem to be some of the most egregious, and who knows how far it extends. And so we should look into it a lot more. Period. But be careful, because while that might be what we're wishing for right now, we could get Kamala Harris as our president, and that would just be as bad, if not a billion times worse. But that's a conversation for another day. I got another story to get into, but to end out that one, the iron is hot. It's time to strike, because it can cool. Let's figure it out. But everybody, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22, conservative college student and radio host out of Central Illinois. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I do want to remind you, please, 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 I don't want to sound like I'm begging. I'm sorry. Please like, subscribe, and share, though. I'd really appreciate it. I really like what I do here, and I want to make, and if you want to support these messages, if you want to support getting this information out to people and the opinion and everything, please like, subscribe, share, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about everything that I'm talking about. But let's get into another story. An unexpected demographic is beginning to trend conservative. Yes, high school boys, according to The Hill, are trending conservative. A popular narrative suggests often that young people are liberal and getting more liberal. Thus, social media buzzed when a chart surfaced in spring that seemed to suggest 12th grade boys had become overwhelmingly conservative. As with many Reddit posts and viral tweets, the truth was much more complicated, but the numbers do say this. 12th grade boys are nearly twice as likely to identify as a conservative versus liberals, according to a respected federal survey of American youth. In annual surveys over the last 3 years, roughly 1/4 of high school seniors self-identified as conservative or very conservative on the Monitoring the Future survey, a scholarly endeavor that dates back to the 1970s. Only 13% of boys identified as liberal or very liberal in those years. So let's take a look at these graphs themselves. I'm hoping that I can get it as good as possible for everybody to be able to see here. So let's take a look at these. So here is the political identities of 12th grade boys, percent identifying as liberal or conservative. And you can obviously see back in the 1976, coming out of the Vietnam War, and also Richard Nixon's impeachment, conservative 12th grade boys were much more liberal than conservative. You can see it's gone up and down here in the 80s, obviously with Ronald Reagan, the actor, 90s. And then it came to pretty even quill back down in 2000, with it seems like 2002, 2001, it was still down there. But now we can see over here, 2022, 23, they're much more likely to identify as very conservative. Back in 2020 hit a peak, and now in 2022 still highly likely. While there is a trend losing a little bit of conservatism up there, liberalism has stayed since 2020 very low for young men. Now let's look at women real quick, just so while I have the charts up, we can see political identities of 12th grade girls, percent identifying as liberal or conservative. Many, even since the 1970s, obviously, around the time, if not a little bit after the time of the sexual revolution, conservatism is very unpopular among young women. However, being in the early 2000s, there did seem to be a little bit of a spike down here, another spike-ish in 2020 when COVID lockdowns and everything were happening, but still very low, as there's been a consistent since about 2012 and then the election of Donald Trump in 2016, a great rise in young ladies, 12th grade girls, identifying as much more liberal. So let's talk about why this is a little bit. Let's get into this. So, of course, but it's honestly, while this makes a lot of people, they're like, oh my gosh, like this is surprising. Young men are conservative. Let's talk about why each of these young men and young women are identifying this way. Heck, I'm a young man. Around the time I was 16 is when I started identifying as a conservative. If you had polled me, I never got this poll, but had you polled me when I was 17, 18, a senior in high school, I would have told you that I was a conservative. I don't know if I was very conservative. I'm very conservative now, but maybe not back then. But let's look back. So in today's society, boys are told to hate themselves. That roughhousing, stoicism, a lot of things that are traditionally male is toxic. Men are called toxic, toxic masculinity, all that kind of crap. Not to mention that one of the primary functions for men throughout human history is currently being destroyed. It was once considered the role of men to be providers, right? To provide for their family, to provide for their community, to provide for a lot of people. Men were the providers. They were the protectors, the providers. Now, sectors of society blast men for having that instinct. And now they say, well, originally they were saying, well, women can provide too. That was the original goal, or part of the original goal for the feminist movement. But it's not just anymore. It's not just women can provide too. It's women must provide. It's make women provide, or else you're a bigot, or else you're a misogynist. Women have to be exalted. We need to have quotas for the amount of women on boards. Affirmative action, essentially, for women, period. So that's the way that society has begun to trend. Well, where do women fall on the spectrum? Obviously, I showed many are much more liberal. Let's talk about why that is. And there's a lot of reasons for both, and I'm going to lay out some more. But why liberal? Simply, why for women? Because in going through the role of the provider, because it's traditionally not the role of women to be the sole provider. And so who offers that providership, that protection that men traditionally had, but now are being hated on and some retracting from doing so? The left offers protection and providership by saying the government will do all of that. They preach universal health care, income guarantees, and wealth redistribution so that everybody can just be provided for. Obviously, we know this is a bad idea due to the fact that if the government can provide everything to you, then they will also take it away. Not to mention the fact that how is it fair that somebody works their entire life to get somewhere? Not even just the top 1%, the billionaires, the elites, and everything like that, but even somebody who's making a comfortable $200,000 a year. Why should they have to subsidize somebody who's laying on their couch, sitting on their butt, doing nothing? There's obviously that. And of course, these aren't only the providership, the protection isn't the only reason that young boys are leading conservative while women are leaning liberal. Men generally appeal much more to logic than women. Women leaning much more to emotion. These are all generalizations, of course, but check on it. I mean, it's generally true. Conservatives tend to appeal to logic. They tend to appeal to men, as liberals appeal to emotion, thus appealing to women. An example being when it comes to the gender ideology, conservatives base their premise on gender theory in the logical scheme of biology. XX chromosomes are female, XY chromosomes are male. Makes sense. It's logical. If this, then that, period. It's scientific. As people on the left tend to base their premise on gender theory on what you feel like today. If I feel like a woman, I must be a woman. If I feel like a man, I must be a man. Feelings, emotion, it appeals to women. Not to mention the fact that that the left tends to phrase everything as, well, conservatives are evil and mean, as liberals are nice and accepting, right? Well, appealing to the emotion, wouldn't it make you feel better to align with the side that appeals to, let's be nice and accepting and kind? I guess when you look at this dichotomy of young men and young women identifying conservative versus liberal respectively, you might also place some of this blame on the sexual revolution and the feminist sexual revolution. But I got to be honest, it can't all be the feminists' fault, right? I got to say, it might also be a little bit of the patriarchy or men's faults as well. Well, I don't have specific historical evidence. I didn't necessarily do my research on all that right now. I could at some point, because this is just a quick segment. What I do know is biological and sociological wants of the male gender. Being one myself, I don't believe that there were many men out there during the feminist movements that were like, oh, take your bra off and like sleep with men. I don't believe I would argue that there were a lot of men out there that were like, yes, please sleep with me, right? They probably weren't like, no, stop. This is going to cause major, major issues down the road, right? I wouldn't necessarily believe that, but I digress. If you have evidence proving me wrong, leave it for me in the comments. Let me know. But the sexual revolution and the increased praise of promiscuity, which is hailed by liberals, thus being why women would maybe fall on that side, basically tells women that they could do whatever they want and face little to no consequence for their action. It has led to calls from feminists for abortion on demand, and some calling for people to even shout their abortion, celebrate it. This removal of accountability and praise for indulgence in lust has incentivized young women to become liberal, because then nothing is their fault, right? If anything, the feminists, the radical ones, will say it's all the men's fault. It's the patriarchy. To have an abortion is to fight against the patriarchy, to fight against your oppression. The sexual revolution has become and again, there might be some good aspects to it. I'm not highlighting those right now, but there could be some. But overall, it has led to this entire idea of women fighting back against a perceived oppression, saying that you having sex with a crap ton of people with multiple partners, several partners, is actually fighting against the patriarchy. And no, you need not pay any retribution for that as long as you use relevant protection against sexually transmitted diseases, because even if you get pregnant, you could just go abort that baby, which obviously has its own moral quandary, which we can talk about in another episode. This removal of accountability and praise for an indulgence in lust, like I said, has incentivized young women to become more liberal because nothing is their fault. If anything, it is a man's fault. I mean, even look at Cardi B, right? Cardi B, the rapper. I've talked about this specifically before, but I think it's good to reiterate. She has her song WAP that's hailed as feminist gold, when it literally says in it, this is a quote from the song, "I don't cook, I don't clean, but let me tell you how I got this ring." Then she proceeds to glorify her genitals. Yeah. So what she's saying is, no, I'm not going to do housework. No, I'm not going to cook. I'm not going to clean, but I'm still married. You want to know why? It's because I am very good in the bedroom. That's what she's saying. Look, I'm sorry, but as a man myself, and hearing this song and hearing the things that it pushes in it, what it sounds like to me is she's saying you can essentially be a sex doll as a woman, and that should make you a good wife. I'm sorry, but I don't want essentially a sex doll as a wife. That'd be incredibly unfulfilling. I mean, I want somebody I can have intellectual conversation with. That'd be boring. I mean, like, I don't see the only value in a woman and the only value in a relationship and a marriage to have sexual intercourse. It's not the only value of a partner to me. And there's a litany of other problems that come with just having essentially a sex doll as a wife. Now, I don't necessarily need, like, we could share cooking and cleaning, but like in terms of having a relationship, but Cardi B boils it down to, I don't have to do anything else but bleep him, screw him, right? That's basically what she says. And there's so much more that a wife should be. But it's interesting to wrap up that whole story that I just want to do. It's interesting to see young men are becoming more conservative, and reliably staying more conservative, which does offer some hope for the future. What we really have to do, though, is win over women. And we saw this in 2020, right? We saw Trump lost. The only demographic Trump lost with was suburban white women, specifically middle-aged white women, like suburban moms. And so if we want to have a conservative president, whether that's Trump, anything, if we want to maintain conservatism as a leading body, if we want the silent majority to actually have any kind of power, well, then we need to win over these young women. Absolutely. And there's a lot of strategy as to how we can do that. We can get into that another time. But it's interesting to take note that young men are increasingly more conservative. And while that is something to celebrate, let's look at how we can win over those young ladies too, because the promises of sexual immorality and no accountability for your actions will not breed a positive and quality society. Just saying. But as you guys heard, I talked a little bit about Cardi B at the end, and I brought her in especially because she's now a suspect of a crime. And no, it's not. It's not a crime of drugging and robbing men. While she's openly admitted to that, whether you guys knew that or not, she did open up about drugging and robbing men when she was a stripper. No, it's a true story. Look it up. No, it's actually a battery charge this time. Yes, let's take a look. Apparently at a concert that she was performing, somebody threw a bit of a drink on her and she threw a microphone at them, potentially causing them injuries. Let's take a look at this video. We can look at that one more time. There's the drink. There goes the mic. And obviously security goes in. And she, yep, you can see everybody's, I just muted the music. Wasn't even worth it. But yeah, so that was Cardi B, throwing a microphone at the guy. And so out of the New York Post, Cardi B is listed as a suspect for battery after that incident, throwing the microphone at a concert goer in Las Vegas. We are told the concert goer walked into the Las Vegas Metro PD on Sunday to report the incident, which was caught on camera by several other fans in the crowd. Police tell us no arrests or citations have been issued at this time. However, TMZ reports that Cardi was named as a suspect. Page 6, which is New York Post, reached out to the rapper for comments. When it comes to this video, there's been a lot of clips coming out recently of artists getting stuff thrown onto them. And so like, I do not think that concert goer was by any means in the right. They probably had too much to drink. They were partying, whatever. And who knows if it was on purpose that he threw the drink or if it was on accident, but nevertheless, Cardi B, no matter how much I dislike her song, her songs, her art, her past, no matter how much I dislike all of that, I will only defend to the point of that a concert goer should not do that. However, she also should not throw a microphone back onto said concert goer for a few reasons. One, a microphone is a lot heavier, will cause a lot more damage than a drink on an outfit. And obviously it'll cause uncomfort. It's rude, but throwing the microphone back, come on, Cardi. Because here's the biggest thing, right? Is as somebody who has taken on any spotlight, even I'm by no means big. I never even like asked or wanted to necessarily be a big famous person. I just like sharing messages that I feel like a lot of other people wouldn't. But let's take myself into it. Not as big as Cardi B, not even close. But I, as somebody who has put myself into the public eye, as a radio show, as a YouTube channel, if somebody comments something to me, or if somebody even comes after me and tries to beat my butt, beat me up, whatever, as soon as I throw a punch back, that's what'll be criticized. Because a no-name doing something that's rude is expected. Somebody who's in the public eye we'll have a lot more people coming back after them. And so you kind of have to think about that, right? You kind of have to think about that. If I were to punch a liberal because they punched me first, the headline would not be Kevin Phares defends himself. The headline would be Kevin Phares punches liberal. Just like in this instance, the Cardi B got lucky with the fact that honestly, a lot of the headlines were Cardi B through microphone, but I mean, a lot of people are coming to her defense on social media saying like, yeah, she had every right to do it. I don't think, like I said, I don't think you have the right to throw the microphone. I think it is an understandable reaction to the situation. But come on, when you're in the public eye, you are under a different level of scrutiny than your average concert goer, your average fan, whatever. So you got to think about that. So I don't like Cardi B's music and everything. Interesting story. Just thought I'd bring it up. Let's see. Maybe she'll actually get arrested. I don't know. It'd be a very interesting story to keep on following. But everybody, what do you guys think about everything I talked about today? What do you think about Biden's family corruption that is finally being exposed? We've all known it. That's the biggest thing about all that. We knew it all. We knew it all happened. But we are finally getting the concrete evidence. We are getting the witnesses. We are getting them in. And it is time, while the iron is hot, launch an impeachment inquiry so we can get everything onto a further record in terms of impeachment. Let's do it. Let's do it. What do you think about that? Leave it in the comments. What do you think about Cardi B? What do you think about the high school boys identifying as more conservative and the women as liberals? How do we win those young women over? How do we do it? Let me know. If you're a young woman watching this right now, if you are a young woman or you know a young woman that's watching this right now and you are conservative, I would love to have you on the show. Please reach out at this email right down here, speechlesskp@gmail.com. Reach out to that. I'd love to have you on the show. I will just give you the mic at this point because I want to bring as many people into this movement as possible. That's why I have this show. We will not be speechless any longer. We can't. The silent majority must no longer be the silent majority. Can't be silent anymore. So if you know somebody that falls in that demographic, have them reach out to me. If you believe that you have something interesting to say, reach out to that email, speechlesskp@gmail.com. I would really appreciate it so that we can continue exalting the voices that can spread these messages and spread the movement. Because we have a country to save, everybody. We can't be speechless any longer. Everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. That's another way that we cannot be speechless any longer. Like, subscribe, and share. Leave me a comment on anything that we talked about here today. God bless you. God bless America. And thanks for tuning in to Speechless, The Daily Show.